Okay, so I put a poll out on the YouTube community page here on Modern Mouse, and if you don't check it every now and then, you should because I allow people to vote on certain things. And for this one, I asked people to give me something to rank. And for whatever reason, people said that I should definitely do the Disneyland attractions, which typically I talk about films and animation, but today, I'm going to talk about Disneyland. Quick fun fact, I live about 10 or 15 minutes away from Disneyland. I haven't always. When I moved to California, I wanted to kind of live near Disneyland. I go there once a month or so. In fact, I post a lot of photos and videos on my Instagram page. If you don't follow me there, you should because you'll get all the photos from Disneyland and other theme parks. I just like going on roller coasters, okay? But I'm going to talk about Disneyland attractions today. And the way that I'm going to rank these is kind of specific. So let me give you my 3 criteria for them. The first being the history or the amount of effort that went into building an attraction. And when I say attraction, I mean rides or walkthroughs or even shows. So we're going to rank them all. Basically, the only thing I'm not ranking in this list are shops and restaurants. But the second thing is going to be what I think is worth waiting in line for a long period of time. So, for example, I might say that an attraction like Big Thunder Mountain or Space Mountain might be worth waiting a longer period of time than something like the Adventureland Treehouse walkthrough. And the third category that I'm going to be going off of is what I think are the quintessential Disneyland attractions. If you've never gone or maybe you rarely go, the things that you really need to get to. These are sort of my personal opinions in a way, but I also think that these are some of the general ideas. So I will mention some attractions that maybe I don't go on all the time, or attractions that I wouldn't pick over certain things that maybe I would. My opinion's going to come into play here and there. So those are my 3 criteria: the history and the thought process that went into attractions, how long I think you're willing to wait for an attraction versus how good it is, and also what I think are the quintessential Disneyland attractions that you should go on, whether it's your first time or one of your few times every few years that you go. Of course, like with any ranking video, your opinions are going to differ from mine, so let me know in the comments below what you think of my rankings and how you would rank them. But let's jump over to the computer and let's do this. All right, so I set these up so that each land is kind of specific. I used either some signage or maybe some things that you might recognize if you've been to Disneyland. I know that these are all kind of pictures that are difficult to see, so I'll explain them as I go. Of course, when you enter the park, you start at Main Street USA. So we're starting on Main Street USA, and the first attraction that you see there is the Disneyland Railroad. It's been there since the beginning of the park. And I would say that this is a quintessential staple. If you've never done it before, you have to do it. It's usually a 10 to 15 minute wait maximum. On the busiest of days, maybe it goes up to like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But take it around the entire park. Trust me, you'll see some fantastic stuff. It's a great way to get around the park, but I think that it's just a great attraction in general. I don't know if I would do it first thing during the day. A lot of people do, and that's probably one of the busiest times for the train. A midday ride, like maybe after lunch or something, is great, but this is for sure an S tier attraction. If you've never been to Disneyland before, this is one that you have to do, in my opinion. I kind of pieced together all of the Main Street vehicles. So there's like the horse-drawn buggy, there's the fire truck, there's the double-decker omnibus. There's like a couple of them, and they're fine. It's, I think, best to, especially if you've never been to Disneyland before, to walk down Main Street first, take in all the shops, maybe grab a cup of coffee or whatever, take it easy and slow. So I don't think this is a necessary attraction, even though there's hardly ever a wait for any of this. I would say that it's not amazing. I think it's a great atmosphere more than it is an actual attraction. And in that way, I'm going to put it as a D tier attraction. I'm going to say that not many things are going to fail here, I don't think. very few anyways. But I think if you're at Disneyland and you have done everything, you've never done a Main Street vehicle, jump on the bus or the horse-drawn trolley or whatever. But yeah, the great moments with Mr. Lincoln attraction is also as you walk in the park, just to the right there. And I really love this show. I know that a lot of people do not. There's never a wait for it, so that's nice. It's been there for a long, long time. It's one of Walt Disney's favorite shows, so historically it has a lot of significance to it. Where would I put it though? I'm not. I kind of want to also. I would personally rank it much higher, but I would also put it at the D tier. But I put it in front of the Main Street vehicles. I think if you're going to choose between the two, I would choose to see the Mr. Lincoln show. I think to see the first ever human animatronic, is kind of a historical significance, but also it's a show, especially if you are somebody who loves history like I do. It's a show that definitely kind of, gets you a little teary eyed. It makes me a little teary eyed every time I'm there. On top of that, it's also just a sentimental thing with my family and my grandfather's favorite attraction and whatnot. So, anyways, the daytime parade. Magic Happens is the current daytime parade at Disneyland, but I'll just say the daytime parade in general. Again, if you've never been to Disneyland, I feel like this is one of the quintessential things to do, is to see the parade. Now, I don't know if it is the priority for everybody, and I'm going to try to not put everything in I'm going to try and divide all these up as easily as possible. So the daytime parade is one that I would say that you should do, but as far as like the big giant shows, it's the last on my list to do. And that's why I'm going to say it's an A tier attraction. Because I would say for the daytime parade, most of the time it's difficult to find a spot to sit down. So you're just going to be like standing around on Main Street for a while. So it's a little bit uncomfortable. You may have to show up 30 minutes to an hour early to see the parade sometimes. And if I see it, I'm usually walking through Main Street rather than just standing around and waiting for it, which is a good way to catch it. The other way to catch it is if you're in Fantasyland, pretty much anywhere, but especially in like the Small World area is a great place to catch it. You might be able to find a seat a little bit sooner to showtime, but it's still A tier. I think if you've never been and you're not going to go that often, you got to see the daytime parade. It's a lot of fun. The floats are fantastic. They build them extremely well. The Main Street Cinema, I'm going to put F tier. It's something you can easily skip. If you walk in there, you'll probably be walking out within a minute, unless it's like the hottest day in the world. And you're just looking for some air conditioning. Like you'll walk in, you'll see that the cinema is playing a couple of old Mickey Mouse cartoons, but you're not going to sit around and watch Mickey Mouse cartoons at Disneyland if you've spent over $100 a ticket. Let's be honest. The other big show on Main Street is the fireworks, and this is for sure top of your list, must do every time. Doesn't matter what fireworks show it is. I will say the quintessential spot is to stand in the middle of Main Street to watch the fireworks. Don't stand up close to the castle. Stand back, because now that they have a lot of projections, it's easier to see the projections on the castle or onto the walls of Main Street if you're in the middle of Main Street. My pro tip, if you've been and you've seen the projection shows like on the castle and the walls and stuff, they're fantastic projections. And during the weekdays, they still run the nighttime shows just without the fireworks. So if you're looking for just a really cool projection show, actually go back to It's a Small World and watch it there, because the projection onto the It's a Small World facade is excellent and usually way less crowded. But if you've never been before, you got to watch them. You got to watch the fireworks on Main Street. That's just the most Disneyland of experiences that you could probably have. Now moving on to Fantasyland, although this is just outside of the Fantasyland gates. There's a little small space of Fantasyland to the left of the castle, which is the Fantasy Fair. It features the Fantasy Theater, which usually has one or two different shows playing. They kind of switch back periodically throughout the day. It's much more of a comedic, silly show. There's seating for kids, but also bench seating for adults. And of all of the sit-down shows that you could see, which, by the way, in all of this, I know that there's a lot more things that you could see. Like on Main Street, you could see the Barbershop Quartet or the Disneyland Band or whatever. I did not add those into the attractions, but I did add sit-down type of things that you would wait for, type of shows, not just things that when you're walking by you kind of catch. So the fireworks and the parade you would wait for. This Fantasyland theater show, the Fantasy Fair Theater, I would say you should wait for. Get there a little early, grab a bench seat, grab a snack. There's like a little snack cart behind it, and watch one of these shows because they're very fun, they're very silly and enjoyable. It's not a must-do, but if you've been a few times to Disneyland, I would say check it out because it's a lot of fun. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Going into Fantasyland proper, we're going to start with the carousel here. A carousel is usually a pretty easy attraction to get onto, maybe a 5-minute, 10-minute wait most days. On the busiest of days, maybe it's a 15-minute wait. So I'm going to put this as a C tier attraction because I think that out of every carousel in the world that you should ride, you should at least ride a Disney park carousel, specifically one of their Magic Kingdom style castle park carousels. And I think that the Disneyland one is an excellent one to start with. Again, I'm putting this in the sense that you should see this theater show before riding the carousel. That's kind of my justification here in putting it as a C tier attraction. Peter Pan's Flight is usually one of the busiest attractions in the park all day long, no matter what. There's no way to skip the line. It's probably going to be a 45-minute to an hour wait to ride this attraction. It is a quintessential Disney attraction, but I think that there are some better Fantasyland rides. The only thing that this thing has going is that it lifts you up off the ground, which is fun. And so I'm going to put it in the S tier because I think that if you've never been before, you should ride it, mainly because you come up off the ground. But I think that there's some better ones here, and we're definitely going to get into this. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Snow White's Enchanted Wish is right across from Peter Pan, and I actually prefer this ride over Peter Pan. It usually has less of a wait, and because of that, it's easier to get on. I think it's more fun because you haven't waited as long. They've recently updated a lot of the scenes, putting new scenes in or adding some special features to the attraction. So for me, I'm putting it as an A tier here. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is an attraction that I think that some people will really love. People who are much more into the history of Disneyland or into classic attractions. It's been there since the very beginning. The same with Snow White and Peter Pan. But this attraction is much more of the classic carnival, hand-painted, crafted kind of dark ride. It has a special place in my heart. I get it. And personally, I would put this as an S tier attraction. It's one I ride more often than most attractions. But I'm going to put this as a B tier attraction. Again, see this theater show before riding Mr. Toad. Although Mr. Toad, you may be able to get, depending on the time of the day, you may be able to get on it in 5 minutes or an hour. So check that out, wherever you're at. All right. Pinocchio's Daring Journey is another excellent Fantasyland dark ride, but I think it is, out of all of the dark rides, the least interesting. I enjoy it. Again, one I ride pretty often because it usually has a pretty short line, but I am going to put that behind Mr. Toad here. I think you should do it over the carousel is kind of what I'm saying. Dumbo quintessential. It's the attraction you see in every single promotional video. If you think about Disneyland, like what rides are at Disneyland. If you've never been, or if you have been, I think that Dumbo comes to the top of a lot of people's lists. I'm going to put it actually on the A tier right here. I am hoping that people stop talking to me on Slack. I feel like I keep on getting notifications here. And so if it's showing up on screen, I apologize. I don't want it to. But if if you're seeing a bunch of Slack messages coming in from various people, I do not mean for that to happen. All right. Lots of Fantasyland attractions here. The Storybook Canal Boats. I think a quintessential Disneyland attraction. It's one of a kind. There's no repeatable version of this anywhere else in the US or worldwide for that matter. And it's cute. It's fun. It is between this and the other attraction that I'm about to talk about. I would prefer this attraction. But is it better than the others on the B tier that I would say yes. I would say actually this is an A tier attraction. Do it behind Dumbo, behind Snow White and Peter Pan, but I think that if you've never been before, do it. It's not that long of a wait. The queue kind of stinks because it's like out in the middle of the sun, but the attraction is it's just fun. It's cute. It's great for the whole family. And you get to see a miniature version of a bunch of storybook places from the Disney movies that you love. Casey Jr.'s circus train also goes around the same area that Storybook Land has. So if you're looking for a different viewpoint of that same kind of miniature land, then you can take this attraction. But I think that out of all of the attractions in Fantasyland, it's the one I would recommend to people the least. So in that regard, I'm going to put it behind Mr. Lincoln, but I'm going to put it ahead of the Main Street vehicles. I'm going to say it's a D tier attraction. I'm also saying not all these are bad. I'm not saying the Main Street Cinema is a bad thing to do. I'm just saying like these are the priorities I would have depending on the time spent waiting for them, and also what feels like you should do it or not do it, depending on if you how often you go. Like, is there going to be stuff in the F tier that I don't really care for? Of course, but I think that that's something you should do. Or if you can get to everything at Disneyland, get to everything at Disneyland. But if not, don't. Alice in Wonderland is another top tier Fantasyland attraction that I would recommend to people. I think that it's one of the best attractions in Fantasyland. The problem is that it always has a pretty long line, like Peter Pan. However, I think that it is a lot of fun and a really good time. I'm going to put it as an A tier attraction, and I'm going to put it in front of Dumbo. I think that like if you were to pick the Fantasyland attractions to go on, I would start with Snow White, then Peter Pan, then Alice. Those are the three that I would recommend as far as the dark rides are concerned. I think those are the three that you must do if you have the time to. The Teacups, the Mad Hatter Tea Party, as it's named in Fantasyland. If you've never been on them, they might make you sick. They might not. They are one of those like attractions that you see in every promotional video, and they're very pretty to look at night. But I don't think that this is necessarily one of the things that I would recommend people go on. Walk by, see it at night, take some photos, take some videos or whatever. But unless you're getting in everything else in Fantasyland, I would say this is the one in Fantasyland that I would skip over. I'm going to put it behind Casey Jr. No, I'm not going to put it behind Casey Jr. because I feel like it's a little bit more significant than that. I'm going to put it at the C tier. So skip Casey Jr. first and foremost, but skip the Tea Party next. I feel like those two attractions you don't need to do necessarily. It's a Small World. Currently, it's in the holiday version, so I have the holiday picture here. But It's a Small World all year round, or holiday version, either one. Quintessential Disneyland attraction. Yes, there are other versions of it all around the world, but I feel like this is the best one. It's the best looking one, in my opinion, from the outside. I love the facade of this attraction. Rolly Crump, Mary Blair, their hands are all over this attraction, and it's great. I believe that of the Fantasyland attractions, of any of them that you have to do, you should do Snow White and Peter Pan first. But it is an A-tier attraction, and I know people are going to be upset with me because of the song or whatever, but I think you should definitely go on this. It's right behind the parade here. The parade is the first one in the A tier, and it's right behind the parade. So it's a must-do here. The Fantasyland Theater, that's actually right across from It's a Small World, not the Fantasy Fair Theater, the Fantasyland Theater. Confusing, but the Fantasyland Theater is much bigger. It's had a lot bigger presentations, where the Fantasy Fair Theater is much more comedic and silly and intimate. This is big productions, Broadway-style dances and musicals type of thing. However, I don't think that anything that's been there has been like a must-see attraction in recent times. And because of that, even the Tale of the Lion King show that is there currently, I would say this goes behind everything on the B tier. So if you've not gotten in all of these rides, besides the carousel, the teacups, and Casey Jr. in Fantasyland, if you've not gotten in all the other rides, don't do the Fantasy Theater show. Unless you're just in love with theater shows, go for it. But there's that. This is going to be a controversial take as well. The Matterhorn. The Matterhorn is, out of all of the mountain roller coaster thrill ride themed attractions at Disneyland, even though it is historically classic, it is not fun to ride. It is very bumpy. People should know that going in. If you have back problems or anything like that, I would not recommend this attraction. It is fun. I enjoy it. It usually has a pretty long line, as do most of the roller coasters. That's why I would recommend it the least. So I'm going to actually put this as a B tier attraction, but I'm going to put it right ahead of that Tale of the Lion King show at the Fantasyland Theater. I would prefer all of the other Fantasyland dark rides ahead of the Matterhorn, mostly because of the long wait, mostly because of the uncomfortable bumpiness of the attraction. If you're going to pick a roller coaster at Disneyland, that is the one I would say to do the least. And we'll get to pretty soon here another roller coaster, and I'll talk about it. But just past Fantasyland is Toontown, Mickey's Toontown, and we're going to talk about a few attractions here that I'm going to bundle some things as well. So the first one here that you'll see is Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, another dark ride. I think it's a good dark ride. In fact, I think it's one of the better dark rides at Disneyland. It's a lot of fun. It's silly. It's actually pretty long. And if you're in the queue, it does not matter how long you have to wait in it, because it's one of the best lines to wait in at Disneyland. Because of that, putting it as an A-tier attraction, I think this is a must-do attraction no matter how old you are. And I'm actually going to do something really crazy here. I'm going to put it back behind Dumbo. So right now, we're looking at this being one of the top 10 attractions in the park, although that's going to probably change here quickly. But Roger Rabbit's Toontown, Cartoon Spin in Toontown is fantastic. If you've never done it before, you should wait in the long line. Don't do the skip the line. Don't skip the line. Don't do a fast pass. Don't do anything like it. Don't Genie Plus it. Just wait in the line. The line's great. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is the newest attraction in Toontown. I would also say it's one of the best in the park. It is an attraction that you can find at Walt Disney World. So in that regard, it knocks it down a little bit. However, like Roger Rabbit, the queue for this is fantastic. Waiting in line for this attraction is a joy. And I don't think the line here is as long as the line at Walt Disney World's version. So because of that, it's an S tier attraction, and I'm going to put it ahead of Snow White and Peter Pan. It sits only currently behind the railroad and the fireworks. It is that good of an attraction. I've done it multiple times, and I've had many a times. I don't think I've waited longer than like 20 or 30 minutes for this attraction. But the queue is fantastic. The ride is fantastic. It's a state-of-the-art type of attraction. It's fun. It features all of the classic Mickey characters. Because of that, top tier. I bundled a bunch of these together, but you can go to Mickey Mouse's house, Minnie Mouse's house, Donald's boat, Goofy's house, the Centennial Park kind of area where the neighborhood where all the homes of these characters are. They're fun little walkthrough attractions, but they're nothing that's going to blow you away. If you're looking to wait in line for Mickey and Minnie, you can meet them in their houses here, and they'll usually be wearing their classic outfits. However, if you go to Main Street USA, you'll usually be able to find Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Daisy, Chip and Dale, Pluto. You'll be able to find those characters on Main Street with less of a line, and they'll usually be wearing, like if it's Christmas time, they'll be wearing their Christmas outfits. If it's Halloween, they'll be wearing their Halloween outfits, etc. So I would recommend meeting the characters on Main Street rather than in their homes. And if you want to do the little walkthroughs, you can, but they're not that important. So for that, I'm going to put them as a D tier. And in fact, I'm going to put them behind Casey Jr., ahead of the Main Street vehicles. The last thing in Toontown is Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster, or the old Gadget Roller Coaster. It's a miniature roller coaster, more of a children's roller coaster, if you want to call it that. It has a little bit of a thrill to it, and I would prefer it over the Matterhorn, which is why it's going to go ahead of the Matterhorn. But it's still a B tier attraction. It's not as great as everything else in Toontown, is what I'm saying. Going back to the front of the park, instead of going straight through the castle. Oh, and I didn't put this on here. I'm so sorry. I should have. The castle walkthrough. It is not here, so let me just say it. I apologize that it's not something that's going to be on screen. But if you've never done the castle walkthrough, it's easy. There's never a line. You'll be able to be told the story of Sleeping Beauty in the span of maybe 5 minutes of your time. If you want to get some steps in, hey, here's a chance to get your steps in. I'm going to put it as a C tier attraction. It's a not mandatory thing to do, but I would say that it is behind the carousel and in front of the teacups. That would be my personal opinion. All right, going back to the front of the park. Instead of going through the castle, you would go left. And the first land you would find is Adventureland, so we'll start there. The first attraction you would come upon is the Enchanted Tiki Room, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. Another quintessential attraction, the first ever attraction with audio animatronics, which makes it historically significant. It's a fun little show. It's usually like a 15-minute show. There's hardly ever if you're waiting, you're not going to have to wait for like the next show after the show that's about to be presented. So grab yourself a little Dole Whip, hang out, sit down, watch Jose and the gang sing their little songs. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to say that this is a B tier attraction, and I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised by that. I think a lot of people would skip this attraction, but I don't think you should skip it at all. I think this is something that every person should see at least one time at Disneyland. And I'm going to put it ahead of the Fantasy Fair Theater. It's the top one currently in the B tier. The Jungle Cruise is another. talk about a quintessential attraction. It's been there since opening day. It's changed a lot over the years. They've added scenes, they've taken away scenes, they've made it more funny. They've, you know, referenced the things that have kind of grown around it, like the Indiana Jones adventure, etc. So it's an attraction that I think you must do. And it all kind of depends on who the skipper of the boat is and how well they tell the jokes. So it's a gamble, but I think it's usually a fun gamble. And I have a great time on this attraction pretty much every time, no matter what. This is an A tier attraction to me. And I'm going to put it behind It's a Small World. I think that is the one to go on. All right. Indiana Jones Adventure. One of a kind, similar to the Matterhorn or whatever, like, right? Like, this is a one of a kind attraction, nothing else like it in the world. It's fantastic. I would say of anything in Adventureland, this is the one thing that you have to do no matter what. This is going on the S tier. It's going ahead of Runaway Railway. It's going ahead of the Railroad and right behind the fireworks. Top of the line, you have to do Indiana Jones Adventure. The Forbidden Eye story is fantastic. The set pieces are fantastic. The way that the vehicle moves, seeing Indiana Jones in front of you, all of it is just so good. It's just so good. It's one of the best rides. It doesn't matter how long the wait is. You have to do it. I would wait 2 hours for this ride. And I would not say that for many other attractions at Disneyland. Usually I tap out when something says longer than 30 minutes, but if somebody came and it's a 2 hour long wait, I would wait with them. The Adventureland Treehouse that is just reopened. It feels more like the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse more than the Tarzan Treehouse that it was previously. And I really love this walkthrough. Of the walkthroughs that are at Disneyland, I would say this is the one to do over the stuff in Toontown or in Fantasyland. Where does it go, though? That is the question. I'm going to say that this is a C tier attraction. I'm going to put it ahead of the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough that is not listed here, so I apologize. But it's behind the carousel still. So ride the carousel. Just do it. But, you know, walk through the treehouse if you have time. It takes a little bit longer than some of the other walkthroughs, but I think that is really pretty. The design of it, the just reopened is great. Some good picture spots too, if you're looking for more of a kind of like view of Disneyland, a view over Frontierland in particular. It's a great fun vantage point. Speaking of Frontierland, heading into there's the old Frontierland shooting arcade. It's been there for a long time. It's gone through many different names. And there used to actually be a lot more of these kind of shooting arcades here at Disneyland, and they've all gone away one by one. I'm surprised that this one has still lasted, but it is similar to me in the Main Street cinema. I don't think that you should do this. It requires extra money. One of the only things in the park that actually requires extra money that's not food or an item to take home with you. And because of that, I would say it's the bottom of the bottom. It's below the Main Street cinema because it costs extra money and because it's not really even worth seeing. Like, you can walk into the cinema, look around and go like, cool, I saw this. You can walk by the shooting arcade and go, cool, I saw it. But like, you're going to spend less time looking at that than you are the cinema, in my opinion. I put these two together because I feel like they are split depending on the days. Usually both of them are not running at the same time. But it's the Mark Twain steam engine and the sailing ship Columbia, the two boats that go around the River of America, the rivers of America, even though it's just one river. And this is an attraction, specifically the Mark Twain. I love riding on the Mark Twain. I love hearing the narration as you go around. And there's some really cool stuff to look at on the river as you go around Tom Sawyer's Island, or Tom Sawyer's Pirate's Lair, whatever you want to call it. So to me, this is one that I would recommend people do if you've been to Disneyland a lot. If you've never been to Disneyland before, see it as it goes by the river, or see it in the nighttime show, which we're going to get to here shortly. But these are things that you don't necessarily need to do. And that's why they're going to be a D tier attraction. I'm actually going to put it ahead of Mr. Lincoln here. But if this were me personally, I would probably put this more as a B tier attraction. I just think that I would recommend this to people less than I personally would ride it. Frontierland's probably premier attraction that everybody is excited to go on is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This is another quintessential Disney attraction. I feel like they use this video of this in a lot of their promotional material. Because of that, it's another S tier attraction. It's worth the wait. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy this attraction immensely. It's my mom's favorite attraction at Disneyland, so it has a little bit of sentimental value as well. I'm going to put it behind Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, but in front of Snow White and Peter Pan. I think that's a good spot for it. S tier. So far, the S tier is the Nighttime Fireworks, the Indiana Jones Adventure, the Disneyland Railroad, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Big Thunder Mountain, Snow White, and Peter Pan. I feel like that's some good elite space to be in. Star Wars, we're going to talk about Galaxy's Edge now. It's one of the biggest lands, but only has 2 attractions in it. Pretty much everything else, if you want to build a lightsaber, it is a cool attraction experience, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. The same with building a droid. Pretty much everything is going to cost you money extra in Galaxy's Edge, except for these 2 attractions. So I'm going to stick to these 2 attractions, which is the Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run. If you've done kind of like a big VR type arcade game, this is similar to that. It's fun to go through the queue and to walk through the Millennium Falcon. It's not as fun to actually sit down and do this attraction. I would say that it's still a B tier attraction. I think that it's fun to do and enjoyable, but I'm going to put it behind. People are really probably going to say something about this, but the B tier currently, Enchanted Tiki Room, the Fantasy Fair Theater, and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, I would put in front of Smuggler's Run. Even though it's a much more thrilling attraction, the wait can get long sometimes, and I don't think the attraction is as cool as it could be. However, Rise of the Resistance is, to me, Disney at its finest. Yes, it's also at Walt Disney World, but it's one of the best attractions in the world. It is worth the wait, no matter what. Again, like Indiana Jones, I will wait a long time for this attraction because it is worth it. It is an extremely great experience. And because of that, I'm going to put it right behind Indiana Jones. It could be, and on any given day, I think I could flip those 2 attractions. But I think that Indiana Jones slightly beats it out because Indiana Jones is only a Disneyland attraction as of right now anyways. And I think that if you're never going to go to Disneyland again, that's the one to ride. Because if you're going to go to Disney World sometime, you'll be able to get on Rise of Resistance. You won't be able to get on Indiana Jones. That's my theory in talking to it. Then moving past Adventureland, what sits in between Adventureland and Galaxy's Edge? To the left of it, it's kind of weird to say that, but there's New Orleans Square and there's Critter Country. So let's first talk about New Orleans Square. The first thing that you come upon there is Pirates of the Caribbean. It's the best version of this style of Pirates of the Caribbean. I know there's the one in Shanghai that blows everybody away, but we're talking about the classic version of Pirates of the Caribbean. I think this is the best version of it. And I think that it requires riding. It's fantastic. I enjoy it. I'm going to put it ahead of Peter Pan, in fact, but right behind Snow White. That's where I'm going to put it. Out of all of the Frontierland and New Orleans Square, Critter Country, like that kind of like if you're walking around the bend of the rivers of America, that's kind of the walk, the Frontierland and New Orleans Square into Critter Country. I think Pirates of the Caribbean is my personal favorite of all those attractions, but I think Haunted Mansion would be most people's favorite attraction. And because of that, it's going to rank a little bit higher. I think it is an S tier attraction. Must do, fantastic. And I'm going to put it ahead of Big Thunder Mountain. So it sits right behind Runaway Railway. Now, Tom Sawyer's Island, Tom Sawyer's Pirate's Lair, whatever you want to call it, you have to take a raft over across the river to get to it. It is a little walk-through adventure. If you have kids, it's a lot of fun. If you've been to Disneyland a ton of times, it's a place to go and kind of do something different than what you would normally do. But I would never really recommend this to anyone. It's a big kind of time waste. And if you're paying a lot of money to be at Disneyland, I don't think that there's time to necessarily waste on something like this, where you're just kind of hanging out on an island. Because of that, I'm going to put it ahead of the Shootin' Arcade and ahead of the Main Street Cinema, but it's still an F tier attraction to me. The whole island. But on the island, nightly, and it's not running currently, but hopefully we'll be back sometime soon, although it will be without a dragon, unfortunately. At least the dragon that we knew and loved. Funny story, I almost saw the show that, if you saw the news in 2023, the dragon basically lit on fire, and there was a giant flaming dragon on stage for a long period of time. And I decided, rather than to watch that show where the dragon lit on fire, I would go ride Indiana Jones. And so I was actually in line, maybe like a 3 to 5 minute walk away from where this giant flaming dragon was, in line for Indiana Jones. So I never saw it. And when you're in the Indiana Jones queue, you're indoors. So, I couldn't like peek behind some trees and see a giant flame. So I didn't know until I got home later on that night that that Fantasmic had a giant flaming dragon. But the Fantasmic show is coming back, so I put it on the list. It is not the fireworks show. I would say if I'm going to recommend something to watch, like an actual show to watch, I would always recommend the fireworks over anything else. But Fantasmic also feels really quintessentially Disneyland. I think it's a better version than the Walt Disney World version. I think it's a cooler setting and location. And because of that, I'm going to put it like pretty high up. And I'm going to put it on the S tier, but I'm going to put it at the end of the S tier. And I feel like maybe people will be mad at me about that, but like it's still one of the top things at Disneyland to do. The Davy Crockett canoes, as you round the bend in New Orleans Square and you end up in Critter Country, you'll see the canoes there. If you would really love a good upper body workout, I recommend this. In the middle of the daytime and 100-degree weather, you're going to get a workout for sure. And so because of that, I don't know if a lot of people are going to enjoy this. It's one of the last things I would recommend to people outside of maybe all of the other things on the F tier. But it's not nearly as good as the Main Street vehicles. And in fact, I would probably go to the island over riding the canoes. So I'm going to put it on the F tier below the island and ahead of the Main Street Cinema. You know what? I'm going to put it behind the Main Street Cinema because at least there you can walk in, get a little air conditioning, see a little show or something and leave. On the canoes, you're on the canoes for a long time. And if it's hot out, you're just going to be burning up in the sun. So, bummer for you. The other current attraction in Critter Country is the Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It's a very cute little dark ride. Is it the best dark ride in the park? No, but it rarely has a line, and it's an enjoyable time. I would say that if you're going to ride something in Critter Country, it's one of the two things you can ride currently, that would be it. But it ranks pretty low as far as like that side of the park, the Adventureland, New Orleans Square, Frontierland, Critter Country type of area. So I think I'm going to put it as a C tier attraction. I'm going to put it behind the teacups here. I know there's a lot of Winnie the Pooh fans out there. They'll probably be mad at me. Heading into the last area of the park that we have to talk about today, which is Tomorrowland, sorry. It's Tomorrowland, and the first attraction that is there is the Astro Blasters. So we've got to talk about the Astro Blasters. And I think that this attraction is getting a bit stale and old. A lot of people still have fun on it, but I could see it going away sometime soon because it's just, there's better attractions that do something similar to it. Because of that, I think it is also a C tier attraction, and I'm going to put it behind Winnie the Pooh even. Sorry, Astro Blasters fans. Go across to California Adventure and ride Midway Mania. I think it's a better attraction. That's all I'm saying. The Astro Orbiter. It's the big giant thing that you see when you first walk into Tomorrowland. It is similar to Dumbo, but it goes a lot higher than Dumbo, but it also isn't as iconic or fun as Dumbo is. I feel like a little kid when I'm on Dumbo. I feel like I'm up a bit too high when I'm on the Astro Orbiter, and like everybody's watching me be uncomfortable. This is one that I would say that out of everything in Tomorrowland, you probably shouldn't ride. Yeah, this is the one I would recommend to people the least. And that way, I would say it's a D tier attraction. I'm actually going to put it right ahead of Mr. Lincoln. Actually, I'm going to put it behind Mr. Lincoln. I would say go see Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln ahead of riding Astro Orbiter. That's what I would say. All right. Now we've got Star Tours. Star Tours, now that Galaxy's Edge is open, it's a harder sell for people, but I prefer Star Tours over the Millennium Falcon attraction. I think that it is a more fun experience. Because there's a ton of different scenes in the attraction, you never know what you're going to get, and it doesn't require you to really do much, except for enjoy it. With the Millennium Falcon, you have to kind of press buttons and do a bunch of things, and it's a fun gaming experience. But as far as just a generally enjoyable experience, I would say Star Tours is better. Because of that, I'm going to put it ahead of Millennium Falcon, and I'm going to put it ahead of Mr. Toad. So on the B tier, it sits right behind the Enchanted Tiki Room and the Fantasy Fair Theater, which for some people it could rank even higher. And on any given day, I could see the reasoning for bumping it to an A tier attraction, but I'm going to set it at B currently. Space Mountain is for sure an S tier attraction. It's one of the best roller coasters in the world, even though it's not extremely fast, has no loops. Just the pure feeling of being in the dark, riding a roller coaster that feels like you're going faster and faster and faster. And the musical soundtrack to this is absolutely incredible. Any version of this that you get, whether that's the Star Wars version or the Ghost Galaxy, if they ever bring those back again, this attraction is absolutely incredible. I think it's better than Big Thunder Mountain. I think that it's better than any other roller coasters at Disneyland at all. That includes California Adventure. I think it's better than the Incredicoaster. I think this is an attraction that is a must-do. I would set it behind Runaway Railway. So again, you're looking at the S tiers being your Fireworks, Indiana Jones, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, the Railroad, the Disneyland Railroad, and then there's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Space Mountain, and then the Haunted Mansion, Big Thunder Mountain, Snow White, Pirates, Peter Pan and Fantasmic, if that was all you did in a day, man, you would have had the best day ever. Like, all of those things are S tier. They're excellent. I would have a lot of fun on this day. The monorail. Unlike Walt Disney World, where it feels like the monorail is a thing to get on and kind of get to places, the monorail at Disneyland only takes you to downtown Disney, more towards the Disneyland Hotel. So if you're going to go check out the Disneyland Hotel or maybe do some shopping in downtown Disney, take the monorail. Otherwise, if you're riding it, you're basically riding it out of the park, or riding it into the park. But if you've never been to Disneyland, the first place that you want to be is not the middle of Tomorrowland. The first place you want to be is right in front of the castle. So it's a difficult sell. I like that the monorail exists. I like seeing it whiz by, but riding it is more of a getting in and out of the park rather than it is anything else. So in that regard, I would say that the monorail is not something that you should do. It's cool to look at, but I'm going to put it back behind Mickey and Minnie's house ahead of the Main Street vehicles. Like the Main Street vehicles, I think that there are better ways to get around just on your feet. Yeah, unfortunately, I love looking at them. I think they're really cool. This one is going to be controversial because I absolutely love the Finding Nemo submarine voyage. I know a lot of Disneyland locals do not, because it's cramped. If you're claustrophobic, it can get to you. And, you know, during the hottest of hot days, and maybe if some kids have been in there that have, you know, soiled their pants or something, it can get a bit stenchy in there. But just the idea that you're inside of a submarine, underwater, not fully immersed, but, you know, like, you're still sitting underwater and you're seeing this little story play out. It's so cute. It's great. I personally really, really love it. Historically, it's been there since the 1960s. It's Walt Disney World's version of the 20,000 Leagues Under the is gone. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is gone. So I think for me, like, if you've never been to Disneyland, you have to ride it, because I feel like it's just one of a kind. But it is not an S tier attraction. I would say that it is an A tier attraction, and I would put it ahead of the Storybook Land canal boats, but behind Roger Rabbit. Again, some people might put this as a D and F tier attraction, or a C tier attraction even, if they're feeling nice. I'm putting it as an A tier attraction. I think it's a must do. Another one that people are probably going to really hate, and the last one on the list, is Autopia, where you get in a little car and drive around. This is not bumper cars. They actually recommend that you do not hit each other, so that you're on a rail, so it does limit your driving. But every time I see a kid driving these cars, they absolutely love it. They have a good time. So I'm going to say that Autopia is one that you should ride if you have little kids. It's a fun time if you've been to Disneyland a bunch and you're looking to do something different. But I think that this is ultimately a D tier attraction. And I'm going to put it behind the Mark Twain Riverboat. Some people might consider this an F tier attraction. You know, like, don't ever do it. And I would say, like, yes, I think the gas engine's a little outdated. Consider this as Tomorrowland. But, yeah. So there you go. There's my list. All the S tier attractions. Again, the top of the line, the nighttime fireworks, the top of the list there. The Indiana Jones Adventure and the Rise of the Resistance are our two big, giant, must-do thrill rides. The Disneyland Railroad, right behind it. Mickey's Runaway Railway and Space Mountain are other big thrill rides. The Haunted Mansion is one of the most classic attractions ever. Big Thunder Mountain, another thrill ride. And then you've got Snow White, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Peter Pan to round out incredible attractions that are fun for the whole family. And then Fantasmic. That's another nighttime evening show. And usually they do a great job of Fantasmic maybe being at 8:30 p.m. and the fireworks being at 9:30 p.m. So you can usually fit in both. But there you go. That's my listing of all of these. And I'm going to throw it back to myself over at the proper outro. But I hope you like these, and give me your thoughts as well. Okay, I'm sure the people are going to have opinions, like I said before. But I had a lot of fun putting this together. I hope that you had a lot of fun watching it. And I'll be back with another ranking video sometime down the line. I actually plan to bring on more guests to do ranking videos with so we can talk things through if possible, including some of the people that you might know from this channel, like Joe or Jack or Jeff, who performs the puppet Barry in the narrative stuff that we do. So in the meantime, thank you for watching. Leave your opinions in the comments below. And as always, my friends, keep moving forward.